What is up, Ravens flock? Huge shout out for your support for the 410 Sports Talk. James and Glenn are the best in the business. They're killing it right now. They love talking Raven talk. Make sure you go subscribe to their channel. Let's go Ravens. Big trust.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I am James Haskell, along with my co-host Glenn Martin. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm feeling a bit animated tonight. Feeling a bit, as I've said in the past, there's a bit of a bee in my bonnet right now. And I'm excited to talk about it. But before we get into the subject that's got me all upset and fired up, take a second. If you're a Ravens fan, you're going to hit the subscribe button. If you're a fan of the show and want to contribute, do the same. Hit the notifications. Make sure you turn those on. With the little bell icon, and then also like the episode if you like it, and leave your comments below. But Glenn, look, it was a calm night. We were doing our last show. I'm getting ready to go upstairs, go to bed, and you introduced this topic to me. Right now, I feel like I'm gonna be up till midnight just thinking about this. What's going on, dude? What's the scuttlebutt?
Yeah, so in a recent article, I believe Bleacher Report had an article. Ravens Wire also did an article about this, basically saying that an interesting possible landing spot for Saquon Barkley if he were to be moved. Of course, he's entering his 5th year with the Giants, his last year under his rookie deal, and looking to either get an extension or to move on. And the link was made that said that it makes a lot of sense for Baltimore to target Saquon Barkley and hopefully bring him in. And so it got me initially when I heard the news. I was in a group chat with a bunch of guys, from all across the country that are football fans, not necessarily Ravens fans, but they're football fans. And I said, why in the world would the Ravens want Saquon Barkley? And Jimmy, they took me to task. They said I was crazy. They said, why wouldn't the Ravens want Saquon Barkley? They said that he's better than both the guys that are currently here. And then some backpedaled slightly in saying that, well, we don't know the ceiling of JK just yet, but totally brushed aside Gus Edwards, our guy, and made it seem like this would be a no-brainer for the Ravens. So, Jimmy, I'm going to let you get in here. What's your thoughts on the Ravens and the blasphemy that is going around talking about who the Ravens already have?
Yeah, so I want to talk about the comparisons of those players and the absolute blasphemy of being committed by those people. But just quickly, historically, if you know anything about this is how somebody is an actual Ravens fan and knows the team and the DNA of the team or not, right? The Ravens can pick up Saquon Barkley. Anybody can say that, it's fine. I'm not going to say, oh, you don't know the Ravens because you said that. But thinking the Ravens would actually pick up Saquon Barkley? Come on. Do you not know the Ravens' entire past and history? Look, I would bet a lot of money that if the Ravens go and make a trade, because it would require a trade, to pick up a guy who's in his 5th-year option that is going to have his contract, I'm guessing at this point, in his 5th-year deal will be more expensive than Gus and JK combined. And Justice Hill. Throw him in there. And whoever they have as their 4th back, right? All of those guys combined, who's got an injury history, right? And on top of that is looking to get paid, right? Saquon also negotiated a fully guaranteed, his contract, all that money was guaranteed his rookie deal. He's going to want to get paid, right? So financially, this doesn't make sense with Baltimore Ravens. But outside of that, the fact that people out there, are forgetting about Gus Edwards is ridiculous. So this is what I did, Glenn. I just did a little bit of digging, okay? Saquon's had some great years, but really we're talking about the model of consistency in Gus Edwards, the absolute model of consistency, and the model of unavailability, right? Saquon is like a meteor, you know what I mean? Or like a rare eclipse. I don't even know if lunar eclipse or whichever one is more rare, right? When he shows up and he's healthy, it's incredible. But half the time you see him on the sideline, more than half the time, right? His best season, 2018, he had a good season. He had 1,300 yards, 11 rushing touchdowns, and averaged 5 yards a carry, right? So 12th in the league in carries, 5th in touchdowns, 2nd in yards. But you know what, Glenn? He was also 2nd in rushes, 261, okay? So what I did was I took his best season, and I said, you know what? I'll take his best season and And I'll pull up that year for Gus, not even knowing if it's his best season or not, because it doesn't really matter. Any season Gus has been healthy, it's been a good year. So Gus Edwards had 718 yards, only 2 touchdowns, but he averaged 5.2 a carry because, Glenn, he was 33rd in the league in touches at only 137. That means JK had almost 130, or excuse me, not JK. Saquon had almost 130 more touches than Gus.
That's in carries, by the way.
And not even like
reception. He also had 121 targets in the receiving game, too.
Right. So my point is just simply this. I think it's ludicrous that you would just overlook the value of one Gus Edwards contractually and production, right? Like there's a ton of value there. The untapped potential of Jaquan, look, I'm saying Jaquan now. Oh my gosh. JK Dobbins. No, like I don't need it. I don't need my running back to be my 3rd or 4th or 5th highest paid guy on the offense. We're about to pay Lamar. We need to pay offensive linemen. I'm good. No, thank you. Don't need it. I'll stick with 35.
Yeah. And so I guess the big thing is, do you think that Saquon will be able to replicate at any point? Like, did any team think that Saquon can replicate what he did as a rookie? Because as a rookie, yeah, I mean, he didn't, he didn't do anything that is, I guess, something that we don't think, like from a rushing standpoint, I don't think he did anything that was so staggering that we don't think
Right.
JK and Gus can replicate. But when you combine that, what he did on the ground and in the air into one guy, well, we may not have that with one guy, but of course we really don't know what JK's potential is from a pass catching standpoint just yet. And even a running standpoint, we still don't know, but we do know this, that when JK as a rookie, the opportunities he did get, he turned it into leading the league in yards per carry at 6 yards a clip. So we know that he can get it done on the ground. Now,
that's a yard more than Saquon in his rookie
best year.
Right.
Yeah, and now that's not a small amount. You're talking about a whole yard per carry when you have 260 carries. That's a big amount. But the question is, will Saquon ever get back to that? Like that's the issue. Whereas we're pretty confident in Gus Edwards. Now look, all 3 of these guys have dealt with injuries over the last year and a half.
But Saquon, it's been
a lot. So just to recap,
too, right?
Yeah, he's had his issues. Now he had a healthy rookie season, but since then he missed 3 games in 2019. He missed nearly the entire season in 2020, and he missed 4 more games last year. But it's really the trend, the trend that has me concerned because, of course, in 2020,
the Sammy Watkins trend.
Exactly, he's going in the wrong direction. So I mean, we can't really talk about 2020. When he only played in 2 games, but he did only average 1.8 a carry in that season. But we're not going to talk about. But last year, in 13 games in which he started all of those games, he averaged 3.7 a carry. Now we understand, it wasn't his perfect scenario and situation around him, so we'll give him a little bit of, I guess, a little bit of leeway. But also, even through the air, he had 41 catches. 41 catches, Jimbo, only 260 yards. So he's not even the pass catching threat that he once was, even in space. He averaged less yards per carry or yards per catch than JK did in his rookie year. So I just don't understand why anyone would look at this the group of returning running backs. Would anyone even think that they don't have enough already in the building is just mind-blowing to me. Both guys were hurt before the season started, so there's no reason to think that they both won't be healthy. I could see if they had like a Bowser injury, Jimbo, where they got hurt in the last week of the year, then maybe you could say, well, they're not going to be ready. They've had ample time to recover from their injury, and I expect both to be at full strength. So why are they even, with so many options in so many areas where the team can help and get better, why are we even talking about running back when that's the best position we might have?
Right, absolutely. Well, part of it is because folks need something to write about.
I guess so.
But I also, to me, let me back up and say this. I think Saquon Barkley has tons of potential. I think he's a really good football player. Like, this is not me saying Saquon isn't a good football player. It's saying that, 1, he's injured a lot. 2, the value piece of it. Running backs are like, if you investing in a guy like Saquon Barkley or like a Zeke Elliott, or it's very rare that you buy a house in a neighborhood that doesn't have a good historical record of maintaining or increasing in value, and you buy the most expensive one in the neighborhood. Usually not the best financial decision.
Yeah.
So point being, that's kind of how you're shopping for running backs, right? Like you need to find value there in every position, but certainly Saquon would be like, hey, every house on this block is $200,000, but that one's $500,000. I'm going to buy the $500,000 one. Doesn't seem like a very good idea to me. Right. So, it's not about his performance as much as it is. While I agree with, you and I just stated the fact that we think we can assimilate his performance or do better with the guys we have. It's not only that, but it's the value that we get out of the guys we have today in comparison to the fact that he's on the 5th year, which is, I don't know what that yearly is going to be. It's going to be over 13 million. Plus he's going to want a big deal.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like you said, Glenn, positionally speaking, that could be our strongest room. And money, contractually speaking, it makes no sense to me. I think that there's as much as a chance of me growing to 7 foot, then as likely as that is, the Ravens would sign Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, and just to recap again, if we thought that either JK or Gus, weren't going to be able to come back to full strength, if there was any thought of that, if this was a healthy Saquon, even if this was let me ask you this, Jimbo. If this was say Saquon bounced back last year and had a season, not to the extent of what he did in his rookie year, but maybe had a season closer to what he did in 2019, where he cracked the 1,000-yard mark, rushing the ball, averaged 4.6 a carry, and had 400 yards through the air. So not what he did as a rookie, but had a decent season. Would that change your thought at all?
I don't know if it would change yours. It wouldn't change mine.
Right.
Same thing. The equation is still the same. If you take X amount of money equals X amount of production, and then you take Gus and JK, I think that production return on investment is going to be 2 times, 3-fold, right? What it is in comparison to what you get with Saquon.
And if you bring in Saquon, you're not going to cut JK, or you're not going to Gus because of their current contract. So there's only one ball, and even if you did have the cap space and the want to go out and get the guy, how could you possibly use those 3 other than, well, if one guy gets hurt, well, I guess it's good to operate, in the what if, but what if they all stay healthy? Then you got JK, Gus, or Saquon sitting on the sidelines, hoping.
Yeah, sounds like a waste of money and player potential, right? Like
exactly, you're not going to waste that kind of cap space. So I can't find an avenue in which this makes sense unless there was a new injury that, knock on wood, were to crop up to one of our existing running backs. Then and only then would I think there'd be a case to do this.
And even still, I would say no. I would say the Ravens bring in would evaluate
like a Freeman.
Would do what they did last year. Yeah, you talk about Freeman, you talk about Latavius Murray, you talk about maybe a situation where we draft a guy if they're not sure about these guys' injuries. There's so many other things the Ravens can do other than take a guy who's going to want to be the highest paid running back in the NFL. Yeah. You think there's any way his agent, you know what I'm saying? The agent isn't pushing for that?
Well, the only way would be is if he has another injury-riddled season in his 5th year, and then it's hard to argue. But if he he plays 13, 14 games, he wants to be the highest paid, no doubt.
Yeah, so it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Saquon in that whole situation. But as far as him and the Baltimore Ravens, now I will say, lastly, as far as his personality and him being a team first guy,
Raven.
Yeah, he's definitely a Raven. But the problem is, at the end of the day, Glenn, you got to make the money work. We're not playing with monopoly money here. It's real money, right? You got to make it work. And I don't think the Ravens see value there in his contract and his future contract situation. So I don't think it gets done. But let us know what you guys think. Do you see this as likely? Do you see this as not likely? Do you see this as a good move? Do you see this as a bad move? All your thoughts below. Leave them in the comments, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
See you.